In December of 2024, I finally decided to cave in to the lingering effects of the Hallyu wave and decided to watch my first K-drama. So I went on Netflix and scrolled through the list and chose the first K-drama that caught my eye, and True Beauty happened to be the first one. Now, despite the title of my video, True Beauty is one of my favorite K-dramas, and I'll explain why. And I've watched it 3 times. The first time, I found it hilarious. Second time, I loved it so much, still found it hilarious. The third time is when I started to notice some subtle red flags from one of the main male lead, which is Isu. You could say I was somewhat halo affected, if that's a word, by Charnu, that during my first and second watch, I've kind of missed these subtle red flags I would like to talk about in this video. Now, it would be worth saying that, is there a cultural difference when it comes to dating? Since getting into watching K-dramas, just Korea in general, I've been researching about the country, about society, culture, and the dating culture is very different from how we do things here in the West. At best, the dating culture could be described as cringy. At worst, it could be perceived as a red flag. If you're not aware of the K-drama True Beauty follows the main character Lim Joo-Kyung, who uses makeup to hide her insecurities, and when she goes to a new school, she is known as the goddess because of how beautiful she looks with makeup compared to no makeup. Now, the new school doesn't know what you look like without makeup, and it's for a reason. In her last school, she was bullied heavily because she was perceived as ugly. All her life growing up, she was perceived as ugly compared to her older sister and her younger brother, I would assume. So because of that trauma, and by moving new houses, moving to a new school, she learns how to wear makeup so she can kind of, in a way, present to the world a mask, you could say. Now, with the female lead, we have 2 male leads. We have Isu and we have Han Seo-jun. Han Seo-jun? I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. And based on my research from 2020 to 2021, it's kind of like a Team Edward and Team Jacob, where the fans of True Beauty would be on one camp, which is Isu, and the other half of the fandom would be with Han Seo-jun. Now, despite the title of this video, I am Team Isu. Now, the first red flag I would like to talk about is the stalking that happens. So Lim Joo-kyung, as she is presenting herself with a new face, she happens to go to a baseball game with one of her friends, and she happens to catch the eye of one of the baseball players. He comes to her school, which again, a little bit stalkery itself. Why would you go to her school? And asks her on a date. Isu sees this, gets a tiny bit jealous, and decides to follow them while she's on a date in the cinema. Now, I've spoken earlier about how sometimes some aspects of Korean dating culture could be seen as a red flag, or this may not be perceived as a part of the dating culture, just may just be a general problem with the culture itself, and stalking is very common. A particular sect of the male population who stalk their love interests. When looking back on this scene, I'm just thinking, is this guy good? Is he okay? Is it that deep? If I were to like someone, I would never consider stalking them on their date to make sure nothing happens. And he tries to do something. When he thinks that Lim Joo-kyung and the baseball player are what seems like they're going to kiss, he, like an Olympian or an acrobat, jumps over the cinema seats to try and break them up from kissing. And then I have to think, sir, what was your plan when you break them up? What do you think was going to happen? How do you think Lim Joo-kyung would have responded? Because I would have been like, what the hell are you doing here? Go away. The reason why I bring this up is because this is not the first time I've seen the stalking trope in K-drama. And it's concerning that it's almost slightly romanticized in a way. And it's almost presented as a comedic scene. I'm sure, as a woman myself, and if there are any other women who happen to watch this video, if you have been stalked or not, I can imagine this is terrifying. The second red flag that I have identified is the staring. Now, I come from a country where staring is somewhat illegal. I mean, I've seen the posters in the underground. And it's not like you're looking at your crush, you know, you just happen to look at them, then you look away, and then a few seconds go by, you look at them again, and you're just appreciating their beauty. This is full-blown, get me the hell out of here, staring. Like, bro, like, relax, relax. There's this scene that I can remember where the school, Lim Joo-Kyung's year group, they've gone on some kind of camping trip, and she's hanging out with her friends, she's enjoying food, she's a big foodie, and she just happens to look up, and Isu is just staring. He doesn't even look away, he doesn't even try to pretend that he wasn't looking at her. He holds eye contact and he continues to stare, and it's not like, he doesn't even smile, he doesn't be like, hey, like, is this a form of intimidation? Because this is very intimidating to me. I can just only imagine if I'm just out and about. I mean, it's happened before, and my spidey senses as a woman goes, you know, fair into the roof. But is this like a mating tactic? It's not gonna work. And I kid you not, I've asked Google, is staring a red flag? Is this just me? Am I just making this up? And Google says, no, it is a red flag. Like, it can signal like lack of respect for boundaries, potential control issues, which we'll get onto with the next red flag, and stalking, as I've already mentioned. You can clearly see that Lim Joo-Kyung is uncomfortable with the staring, and he doesn't let up. He just continues to stare at her, and I'm like, is this supposed to be romantic? Because it's kind of framed that way again in the show. It's not good. It's not good. So I've mentioned control issues, so this is the third red flag that I can think of, and that is Isu is not comfortable with Lim Joo-Kyung and her friendship with Han Seo-jun. So much to the point that when he realizes that they work together, which, by the way, the second male lead helped Lim Joo-Kyung find a job so she could pay for beauty school, because she realized after, you know, covering her face, actually, I enjoy the process of putting on makeup. I enjoy the act of transforming myself in a slight way. I enjoy how makeup makes me feel powerful. He tells her, I don't like your friendship with him. Quit your job. Now, I have to give it to Lim Joo-Kyung. She stands her ground and she's like, no, I'm not going to quit my job. Which, by the way, which she's mentioned, if you're not comfortable with me having a male friend, like, what about you and the other girl? I forgot her name because she pissed me off. What about her? You're friends with her. He sues, like, what do you mean, what about her? And I'm like, what do you mean? What you mean, what about her? I can almost understand why the majority of the fan base is for Han Seo-jun, because other than the fact that he tries to pretend to like Lim Joo-Kyung to get back at Isu, which is a whole nother plot that I do not want to explain, he does tell Lim Joo-Kyung, like, your boyfriend is a bit weird. He's a bit possessive. Like, this is... He recognizes that this is not normal. And perhaps he feels that way because Han Seo-jun has a younger sister. So if he were to see, which he kind of does actually, Lim Joo-Kyung's brother is a weirdo with Han Seo-jun's younger sister, and he's like, oi, leave my sister alone, stop following her, stop annoying her. So he understands from the female perspective, at least, so he can sympathize with the female, or with women. Why do I say female? He can sympathize with women when he can see unhealthy behaviors in the men. Even though this is the third red flag, Isu does apologize later, which I guess we like, I'm a part of the whole show, we can accept his apology. He realizes, like, that wasn't cool of me, I'm sorry, you know, let's move on from that. My prefrontal cortex has developed, I can see this and recognize how icky it is, but imagine if I had watched this during the time when it came out. How would I have perceived this? I'm already unpacking how Twilight is very unhealthy when I was reading it when I was younger, and all the other romance books that I've read that had very possessive, very icky, very red flaggy men as the male lead. It's a shame. Now, despite these red flags, there were some cute moments with them. There were some cute moments. Just the scene I found so cute. And it's the scene of when they're in class together. They're sitting next to each other. They're holding hands and they're doing some cute stuff. And I'm like, and this is the scene where I realize, why has it taken me this long to watch K-dramas? Because I don't act this way watching shows from the UK or the US. I'm out here screaming and kicking my feet because I see something cute between a couple. And yet I'll watch a show here and I'm like, ugh, okay. All right then. So that was a very cute moment between them. I like Isu. I like him. He has some green flags, but these are the red flags I can't ignore. I want to emphasize that if you do see a red flag, despite the many green flags that we see in a romantic partner, take that as face value and walk. I'm sure it would have been mentioned before, but it's just kind of normalizing this behavior that is not normal and is creepy, and this behavior may not seem as serious, or you may overlook it now, but somewhere down the line, it will really escalate, and you wouldn't want to be in a position like that, really. Despite my love for Isu is a bit of a red flag.